on the pathway to growing the channel and stuff like that. I appreciate everyone joining in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Sorry, I'm just looking at this cut. Hit the like and subscribe button, share this video, and let's run the views up. Today, Trump is live. He has, some really important things to say to you guys. So let's check it out. This is the President of the United States now, apparently. Something like that, I guess. But I guess this is a few days.
Representative Omar.
Ready? Let's get started. But don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. The monetization process, we're getting closer and closer to getting approved. We're just waiting.
For the terrorist attacks on our country, saying that terrorism So Representative Omar blamed the United States for the terrorist attacks on our country, saying that terrorism is a reaction to our involvement in other people's affairs. She smeared U.S. service members involved in Black Hawk Down. In other words, she slandered the brave Americans who were trying to keep peace in Somalia. Omar minimized the September 11th attacks on our homeland, saying some people did something. I don't think so. Some people did something. Yeah, some people did something, all right. She pleaded for compassion for ISIS recruits attempting to join the terrorist organization. She was looking for compassion. Omar laughed that Americans speak of Al-Qaeda in a menacing tone and remarked that you don't say America with this intensity. You say Al-Qaeda makes you proud. Al-Qaeda makes you proud. You don't speak that way about America. And at a press conference just this week, when asked whether she supported Al-Qaeda, that's our enemy. That's our enemy. They are a very serious problem that we take care of, but they always seem to come along somewhere. She refused to answer. She didn't want to give an answer to that question. Omar blamed the United States for the crisis in Venezuela. We think of that one. And she looks down with contempt on the hard-working Americans, saying that ignorance is pervasive in many parts of this country.
Boo!
And obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds. And she talked about the evil Israel, and it's all about the Benjamins. Not a good thing to say. So that's Omar.
Hit the like and subscribe button, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you bringing this en bloc up today. I fully support this, and it's important for me to point out a few things as my colleague who just spoke used the frequent use of the words honestly and honest. Let's just get to a lot of what's left out. So the BDS movement has not distanced itself from Hamas, a designated foreign terrorist organization. BDS supporters individually are not distancing themselves from Hamas either. It is wrong to be blaming all Israeli and Palestinian violence, quote, as being due to an occupation. Last Friday, Fatih Hamad, a senior Hamas official, called upon Palestinians worldwide to kill all Jews. This is a senior Hamas official just before the weekend. During a closed meeting in October 2017 between Hamas chief Sinwar and Gazan youth about reconciling with the Fatah movement. Sinwar stated that the time spent discussing recognition of Israel is over, and now Hamas will instead discuss when they will wipe Israel out. Hamas uses women and children as human shields. They declare jihad as an obligation. They deny humanitarian aid to their own people. They deny human rights, launching rockets from Gaza into Israel, killing innocent civilians. Tens of thousands of rockets in Lebanon being ready to be launched by Hezbollah. Existential threats to Israel all around.
Guys, we're about to get monetized. Look at that.
One, that there's been a historic relationship between our two nations, a beacon of
all thanks to you guys. Hit the like and subscribe button.
In a region of the world that is filled with challenges. We want to be neutral arbiters. Let's not deny our right and our duty to also be honest brokers. To spend an entire time in justifying opposition to HRES 246 based off of everything that's wrong is all due to the Israeli occupation. Why not point out the fact that in 2008, Israel offered to withdraw from 93% of Judea and Samaria in the West Bank? Or what about our students on college campuses right now from coast to coast being targeted with blatant anti-Semitism in the name of BDS? Or taking into consideration the founder of BDS and all of his blatant anti-Semitism? Or the Palestinian authorities pay to slay. They financially reward terrorism. They treat you to a state funeral. They will rename football stadiums after you. We want to use honesty in our remarks. We'll give you a whole lot more honesty. Every year, Hamas mobilizes Palestinians in their days of rage to attack Israelis at their border, calling them to throw rocks and fire missiles at Israel. Often results in actual violence. Hamas uses incendiary kites and balloons, which has destroyed some 8,000 acres of Israeli farms, parks, and forests. And I was pointing out, just last Friday, a senior Hamas official called for the murder of every Jew in the world. And you want to oppose HRES 246 under the justification that all the violence is due to an Israeli occupation with no honesty as it relates to any of the violence targeting innocent Americans. By the way, when this committee passed and it became law, the Taylor Force Act, that's not an Israeli citizen. That's a United States military veteran, a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. And the Palestinians pay the terrorists to murder the innocent American and Israeli. We provide tax dollars to the Palestinians, and we demanded more accountability. We could go through the list of the 1,355 people killed by Palestinian violence and terrorism.
Let's not go through all that, guys. Just hit the like and subscribe button. And yeah, let's get this channel way up, guys. Almost at 3,000 subscribers.
Responsible for that.
It's like, where are we, guys? Where are we? Let's get to 5,000. Now, this is a video by the Wall Street Journal, a well-known liberal organization, the Wall Street Journal. What Trump can do and can't do on the first day. So let's check out that.
President-elect Donald Trump has promised to do a lot in his second term.
Starting on day one, we will end inflation. We have to do the tariffs, the largest deportation operation in the history of our country.
But not all of Trump's policy goals are doable by the president alone. Some are, like...
It will be my great honor to pardon the peaceful January 6 protesters.
But some are not.
We will have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our seniors.
Here's what Trump...
Who do you guys like, Biden or Harris? Let me know where you guys are coming from.
Let's start with Trump's biggest plan, immigration.
On day one of my administration, I will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration, and we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation
in history.
Any presidential administration can do a significant number of things with regards to how people are processed at the border. That doesn't mean that the president can unilaterally override current laws. And those laws require that the United States when presented with certain claims by migrants at the border or inside the United States, they have to be heard in a certain way with a certain type of process.
Trump hasn't outlined a plan yet, but the president controls immigration enforcement and can decide who they prioritize to deport. So Trump can change the current policy of prioritizing unauthorized people who pose a threat to anyone in the country unlawfully.
That still doesn't mean that 11 million people can be removed. The Obama administration accomplished the highest number of internal removals, and that was with the enforcement apparatus of the United States going at full bore. So you can imagine the number of resources that need to be committed as a practical matter to something that even approximates the millions that the Trump administration is talking about.
To hire more people, to build detention centers, to pay for transportation, all the logistics of increased deportations would require congressional appropriation. He could ask local law enforcement to assist, although only if they volunteer and if state law even allows. And then local departments would have to use their own budget and resources. Trump has also floated the idea of using the military.
The United States military is forbidden by statute from engaging in domestic law enforcement.
And there's not really any good way for presidents to get around that. So the president can say there's a national emergency, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that he can't use federal troops to enforce law.
But as commander-in-chief, Trump can organize the top of the military, like generals.
And we have a military that's not woke. You may have a few people on the top that are woke, and we're going to get rid of them so damn fast your head's going to explode.
The president can get rid of generals. The president's a little more tied on replacing them. So Congress has a say in who replaces those generals.
We're going to take the Department of Education, close it. I'm going to close it.
The Department of Education was created by Congress, and it can only be closed by Congress. It mainly handles student loans and enforces civil rights programs like Title IX, which protects students from gender discrimination.
I will keep men out of women's sports.
The president has the authority, and the Secretary of Education have the authority to rewrite the Title IX regulations. The Trump administration rewrote the Title IX regulations. The Biden administration rewrote them again. And so I expect we're going to see new Title IX regulations within his first year.
The department allocates money to schools through these civil rights programs, like for students with disabilities, and doesn't actually set curriculum.
Guys, hit the like and subscribe button.
Order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children.
The reasons that the department can cut off federal funding are well defined by law. And so to tie new policy priorities to federal funding, you would have to pass new legislation.
Done.
It's important to underscore that if they were to do that, it would represent a sort of very significant deviation from a long-held principle that the federal government should not have a say over curriculum.
Starting on day one, I will approve new drilling, new pipelines, new refineries, new power plants, new reactors, and we will slash the red tape.
All he can do is tell EPA to reconsider those rules, and then it will go through what's likely to be a multi-year process.
For example, in his first term, Trump directed the EPA to revise or withdraw the Clean Power Plan. It wasn't repealed for more than 2 years.
We will drill, baby, drill, and I'm going to cut your energy prices in half within 12 months.
Trump does have the authority to direct departments like the Interior to allow for more drilling. But not only do those plans have to go through the same long process, it's a private industry that drills and sets the price of oil.
And of course, even if he approves it, that doesn't mean industry is going to think it's, economically viable for them.
I can make anybody do anything through the use of tariffs, and the president has the right to impose the tariffs.
The Constitution gives the power of setting tariffs to Congress, but in the 70s, they gave power to the president to set tariffs for specific retaliatory or emergency reasons.
It was never probably contemplated to be against an entire country, but it could be.
Trump wants to put tariffs on China and Mexico.
Every damn thing that they sell into the United States is going to have like a 25% tariff until they stop drugs from coming in.
As a retaliatory move, he has that authority delegated to him by the Congress.
But this trade lawyer thinks some of Trump's broader proposals to put blanket tariffs on every import from every country.
I'm going to impose a tariff on the outside world.
A small 10% tariff on foreign-made products will allow massive tax cuts for working families.
Would see some legal challenges.
If he doesn't explain it, he doesn't declare an emergency, he just says, well, I'd like to see tariffs today of 20% on all countries, all goods. I think the court would say, no.
What do you know? You don't know anything.
Given to the Congress.
Who is that guy?
Do it.
Hit the like and subscribe
To
button
make
for
Trump's
Donald J.
objectives for a
Trump.
second term, there are limitations, checks and balances within the process or directly from Congress. But most experts believe he'll follow a similar playbook as his first term, implement the policy first and have the courts decide the legality of it later.
And yeah, just go ahead and do things and not worry much about whether they're legal.
I think the bet that the Trump administration is making is that eventually their views will be vindicated by perhaps a Supreme Court that is friendly to their views.
The attempted efforts by Trump to promote his policy agenda through the power of the executive, I think, remains to be seen.
Before we get into tariffs,
the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan,
we should talk about the chicken war.
The chicken war is a clucking good story.
In post-World War II West Germany, people started eating a lot of chicken, specifically American chicken. Midway through 1962, U.S. farmers were on track to sell more than $50 million worth, $500 million in today's money. This made European farmers mad, so the organization that later became the European Union put a tariff on chicken. A 5-pound chicken that started as $1.60 became $2.25. Imports quickly dropped. U.S. chicken farmers and politicians were furious.
and we thought Germany's our big market for chicken, and so if we hurt the Germans, maybe we'll get them to change their mind on chicken.
So the U.S. put a 25% tariff on trucks, like Germany's Volkswagen. And it worked. Their truck sales in the U.S. fell by half, and they never really recovered. Meanwhile, Germans paid more for their chicken, and Americans had fewer truck options. It's kind of a perfect example of what tariffs do. Hurt consumers while protecting very specific industries, or attempt to get countries to change their behavior. While they haven't been a large part of trade policy in decades, former President Donald Trump wants to change that.
Some might say it's economic nationalism. I call it common sense. I call it America first.
President Trump has really sort of brought a lot of people out to think that tariffs might be something that's useful in America's economic arsenal in a way that hasn't been used in the past.
Here's how tariffs work and what Trump's proposals would do. Let's start in 2018, when President Trump put tariffs on
Washing machines, we're going to benefit our consumers, and we're going to create a lot of jobs.
Since then, whenever a washing machine is imported to the U.S., the company on the U.S. side doing the importing pays a tariff to the U.S. government.
Their margins are pretty low. They've got to pass that price on to consumers who ultimately pay it. That's the whole point, in some sense, to reduce demand for those goods and create space for domestic producers.
After the tariffs, not only did the price of imported washing machines go up, so did the ones made in the U.S.
There's this myth out there that if we tax imports, domestic producers won't change their prices. And that's not the case. You're creating more demand for them.
So naturally, the price goes up. And it wasn't just washers. Dryers went up in price too, even though they weren't part of the tariff.
Everything went
In
up.
this case, if you buy a washer, you buy a dryer. So even though dryers
Under
were directly
Biden.
affected by the tariff, they're indirectly affected by
Hit the like and subscribe
It
button.
wasn't all bad. These tariffs did
Create a lot of jobs.
about 1,800, mostly from those foreign companies like Samsung and LG opening plants in the U.S. And a study found the U.S. collected $82 million annually. But because of those price increases, it cost consumers $1.5 billion more. So they basically paid $815,000 per job.
This is a very expensive job creation program. And so that's another reason why economists don't like tariffs. They're much more cost-effective, more efficient ways of increasing employment
Wrong.
in these industries.
These weren't the only tariffs Trump created
The
in
fuck do these
2018.
people know?
The big ones were on
Steel and aluminum.
Those are really designed to punish China for its transgressions of international trade rules.
Also for national security. They're used to make a lot of military equipment, but also everyday things like cars.
All the industries that use steel have to pay the higher price. That squeezes their profit margins, and it also puts them at a competitive disadvantage.
Guys, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Kinda, but not really. Hit the like and subscribe button. Share the video.
And so a lot of studies have shown that you lose jobs, as many, if not more jobs, in those downstream industries.
All I know is the economy is going to be a lot better under Donald J. Trump. Aren't you guys excited? More jobs, more revenue for the American people.
Manufacturing jobs, which were on the decline, didn't increase, but they did level out. The overall economy lost jobs, mostly in those downstream industries, and the costs of the tariffs were passed on to U.S. companies and consumers. So, not great for the economy, but it did motivate U.S. companies to move out of China and made supply chains more resilient. But it didn't change much of China's behavior, and in many ways, they became more aggressive. But here's the thing. Even with all the economic downsides, a review by the Biden administration suggested Trump's tariffs should remain, and the administration should add or increase them, which they did.
Once tariffs get in place, there are two factors that sort of keep them in place for some time. First of all, there are going to be domestic interest groups that have a stake in seeing those tariffs maintained because they like the extra market share that they've gained as a result of those tariffs. And second of all, tariffs are a bargaining chip. So why would we sort of unilaterally get rid of these, even if there's some economic benefits, when we might use it in some negotiations down the road?
Tariffs are really hard to remove. It's why, 60 years later, there's still a 25% tariff on trucks, even though U.S. chicken farmers no longer care about selling in Europe.
So we're still living with the legacy of the chicken war. So that's sort of another lesson of history, is you have to be careful about imposing these tariffs because you think you're doing it for short-term strategic reasons or you're just helping out this industry temporarily, but they can last for decade upon decade upon decade.
Tariff policy is kind of old. Even by the chicken war, they were only imposed on around 7% of U.S. imports. Trump's plan for a second term is to bring them back dramatically.
This is the policy that built this country, and this is the policy that will save our country.
He's proposing a 60% tariff on everything from China, and a 10 or even 20% on every import from every other country.
Countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
Multiple independent studies looked at the possible effects. One found it would cost the average American household $1,700 from higher prices. Another found it could cost more than 684,000 jobs. And they don't factor in how domestic goods might get more expensive, or retaliatory tariffs from other countries.
They're not going to take this line down. They're not going to change their behavior in some way to appease the administration that imposes such tariffs. They're going to retaliate. So not only will U.S. imports shrink, but U.S. exports will shrink as well.
Trump wants to use these tariffs as a revenue stream for the U.S. to pay for tax cuts.
As tariffs on foreign countries go up, taxes on American workers and families come down.
Studies found his proposal would likely bring in around $250 billion per year, about 5% of what the federal government currently brings in with taxes. So if tariffs are harmful, always harmful even to the economy, why is Trump so focused on them? In the last 20 years, China has gotten aggressive, investing in manufacturing to become the world's largest exporter. Even today, they invest more than any other country. It has let them export things like steel and aluminum at below market values. That, coupled with numerous trade rule violations,
allowed President Trump to really restart the whole discussion about using tariffs to achieve certain objectives, such as punishing other countries, and the Biden administration has just continued that. So the whole environment has really changed from 20 years ago, when trade policy was pretty quiet business, and now we're talking about industrial policy, tariffs, subsidies, and all these different interventions. Because the whole global and geopolitical environment has changed quite dramatically.
For you guys, hit the like and subscribe button and I can.
In the short run, we know the economy will suffer. In the long run, no one really knows. Will it be a war between the U.S. and the rest of the world, or the Western world against China? Trump wants to play a game of chicken to find out.
Chicken with Trump.
On this road in El Paso, Texas, stretching as far as the eye can see, thousands of trucks make their way back to Mexico after dropping billions of dollars worth of goods bound for U.S. consumers.
This is a scene that you see every day. Millions of dollars of product are coming in from Mexico into the United States.
Mexico.
For the first
Viva
time in more than
Mexico.
2 decades, Mexico overtook China as the largest importer of goods to the U.S. Mexican goods imported to the U.S. totaled $475 billion in 2023, about $20 billion higher than the previous year. During that same period, Chinese goods imported to the U.S. came to $427 billion, $110 billion less than the year prior, and imports from Mexico are still climbing. In the first 8 months of this year, U.S. imports from Mexico reached $334 billion, 5.8% higher than the same period in 2023. Fueling that trend are simmering trade tensions between Beijing and Washington, an effort to bring U.S. imports closer to home, and a burgeoning Mexican manufacturing base. But there's another factor at play. To avoid American tariffs, Chinese companies are using Mexico as a backdoor to the U.S. With what you're moving within Mexico itself, the finished product, how much of those Chinese goods actually stay in Mexico?
All of them.
Roughly, do you think
All of
Chinese
them have to
products
stay
come into the
in
United States?
Mexico.
I think there's a huge market.
Hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the like button right there. Hit the subscribe button. Let's run the channel up 3,000 subscribers.
Bring stuff from all over the world to Mexico, manufacture here,
Mexico.
and send it again abroad.
Chinese car companies, for example, are setting up shop in Mexico. Tariffs on Chinese goods date back to 2018, when the Trump administration launched a trade war with China. To take advantage of the Mexican trade, logistics companies like Maersk, DHL, and Uber Freight are ramping up their investments on both sides of the border.
These companies are coming to Texas. It's a wild, wild west where they are buying up land to secure warehouse space.
At the center of it all is U.S. Customs and Border Protection, one of the world's largest law enforcement agencies with over 60,000 employees.
We will do a complete inspection on it, from instruments of terror to narcotics to country of origin to manifest discrepancies, everything.
More than 650,000 cargo trucks crossed the Isleta-Zaragoza Bridge in El Paso, Texas in 2022. So how is China able to circumvent U.S. tariffs? And what are logistics companies doing to prepare for the upcoming boom in Mexican trade? CNBC traveled to Mexico City and El Paso to find out. In an effort to avoid U.S. tariffs, Chinese companies are moving their raw materials and operations to Mexico. Jordan Dewart is the president of cross-border logistics company Redwood Mexico. In addition to this 100,000 square foot warehouse in El Paso, the company also has about 200 employees in Mexico. How has the landscape changed since the start of the Trump trade war when it comes to Chinese manufacturing?
Well, it's no secret there was a lot of pressure on Chinese companies after those trade wars. And I think we saw immediately an opportunity for Chinese companies to move to Mexico to kind of catch this nearshoring wave.
Ocean container data tracked by freight analytics firms in NADA backs that up.
We have seen 18 months in a row now with ever increasing, basically all-time high monthly imports from China to Mexico.
Container traffic from China to Mexico has surged in recent years. From January to August 2024, China to Mexico container trade was up by 22% from the year prior. That's on top of container trade along the same route in 2023, up 33% from 2022. At the same time, China's container trade to the U.S. has slowed down.
We see an ever-growing trend into Mexico. I think that's pretty clear to me that something is going on here. Someone is preparing for something. It's not all going into Mexico consumers.
VesselBot, which also tracks container flows, shows the 3-month period from April to June recorded the highest volumes of Mexico exports to the U.S. this year. The North American Free Trade Agreement, implemented in 1994, eliminated most tariffs between the three countries. The United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, which replaced NAFTA, went into effect 4 years ago. The agreement is up for renewal in 2026, and a focal point of those talks is expected to be trade with China.
Yep, now you guys basically know that, but let's get back to the king himself, Donald J. Trumper. Donald J. Trumper. Do you guys love Trump or do you hate him? I was wondering where that noise was coming from. Okay. Now we know. Who cares if Ellen DeGeneres flees the election? All these other Democrats said they were going to leave when Trump won last time. None of them left. But let's watch something that would really piss off the Democrats. This will really piss. This makes the Democrats almost go crazier than Trump himself.
It's the beginning of Donald Trump's new team. The president-elect has wasted no time in picking who he wants on board. It's a mix of old allies and hardcore MAGA loyalists. It hasn't been without controversy, and already there's been chaos. Some of his picks have sent shockwaves through Washington, D.C. One of the most controversial picks was Matt Gaetz, who was set to serve as Attorney General. He'd been under investigation previously by the very Justice Department. Donald Trump wanted him to lead. A woman had testified to a congressional committee Matt Gaetz had had sex with her when she was 17. Then came a second claim.
Dana, we're hearing that Attorney General nominee, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, has withdrawn his nomination for Attorney General. But Dana, this comes about 45 minutes after we reached out to him about some new reporting that we have. And this new reporting is that there was a second sexual encounter between him and an underage woman at a party in 2017.
He was to be the hammer to justice, but in the end, his own colleagues were unlikely to support him. Gaetz is divisive, responsible for the ousting of then Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, a coup that crippled the US Congress for weeks.
We are breaking the fever now, and we should elect a speaker who's better.
Gaetz was the subject of a federal sex trafficking investigation, but the Justice Department ultimately decided not to bring charges against him. Donald Trump has also put forward Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. Kennedy has been one of the United States' most prominent vaccine skeptics for years, views that have been criticised by his own family members.
Yes, I think Bobby Kennedy's views on vaccines are dangerous. You know, I grew up with him, so I've known all this for a long time.
And satirised during Alec Baldwin's return to Saturday Night Live.
I care deeply about a woman's right to choose to give her child polio.
He's already committed to reshaping public health guidelines.
Donald Trump has come out and said that he wouldn't fund schools that mandated certain vaccines. Do you agree with that decision?
Yeah, I do.
And formally recommended fluoride be removed from American public drinking water.
It's lowering IQ in our children. I think fluoride is on the way out because of that court decision. I think the faster that it goes out, the better. I'm not going to compel anybody to take it out, but I'm going to advise the water districts.
Kennedy began the presidential election campaign running against the now president-elect, but eventually withdrew and endorsed Trump in exchange for a position in a future Trump administration. Sticking with health, celebrity physician Dr. Mehmet Oz has been tapped to serve as Medicare and Medicaid administrator. Dr. Oz started his career as a heart surgeon before appearing on Oprah and eventually his own daytime talk show, The Dr. Oz Show. He's been criticised for promoting unproven products and health misinformation, including the use of malaria drug hydroxychloroquine to fend off coronavirus during the pandemic.
Are you fuckers calling it a malaria drug now? First that shit was a horse dewormer. Now it's a malaria drug. Guys, this drug has been used on humans for decades, literally. Like, people know it's good for COVID. Other countries have recognized it as good for COVID. The United States is the only bullshit country that keeps saying it doesn't help. I mean, I don't know if that's because they want to push the stuff they push, but...
And some people...
I can't even say the jab word on YouTube. The jabs they sell.
If he's confirmed by the Senate, Dr. Oz will be in control of drug prices, Medicare payment rates, and the way healthcare providers operate across the United States of America. Another pick who is no stranger to the world of TV is former WWE executive Linda McMahon. Donald Trump says he wants to make America #1 in education in the world. And he says McMahon is the woman for the job. She served on the Connecticut State Education Board in 2009, but doesn't have a background in teaching, making her an unusual choice for the role. Another appointment raising eyebrows is Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic congresswoman who served in Iraq and actually made a bid for the presidency in 2020. She's been accused of parroting the views of Moscow.
So now she's defended Russia, she's defended Syria, she's defended Iran, and she's defended China.
Gabbard is set to take up the role of Director of National Intelligence, overseeing the United States' 18 spy agencies.
This is not a place for a Russian, Iranian, Syrian, Chinese sympathizer.
There's a lot of concern. And
Sympathizer, damn.
Assistant director at the director.
Maybe she just doesn't want her kids to blow up in a fucking nuclear fire like a lot of these warmongers, Dick Cheney and his daughter want.
Organization Forward is the one at the table who literally knows the least.
You know, I'm sorry, man, but not everyone wants their family to die and blow up in a fire for a few $1 million like Dick Cheney.
Secretary Pete Hegseth, he too has been accused of sexual misconduct, a sexual assault claim from 7 years ago.
Did you sexually assault a woman in Monterey, California?
I have, as far as the media is concerned, it's very simple. The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared.
Hegseth has served multiple tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Guantanamo Bay, but most Americans will know him as a Fox News Weekend host and author.
What we're about to show you, hide the kids.
Hide your wife.
Hegseth has stirred controversy.
Hide your kids. Hide your wife.
This.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective.
I agree 100%. No biological woman can beat me in a fight.
He thinks that there are woke warriors, meaning there are some generals that
or
are
most
hired,
men for the
because of their color.
compare an Olympic athlete fighter woman versus the average man. I hate to say it, but
it's very controversial. There's no way around it.
Florida Congressman and Afghanistan veteran Mike Waltz is set to become Trump's national security advisor. He's known for taking a hard line against China, calling the PRC an existential threat, and noting he'd like to arm Taiwan. Waltz could work closely with Secretary of State pick Marco Rubio. The pair could usher in a new era of US-China relations.
It's a tremendous honor to the President would place his confidence in me in a position of such importance. It's also a tremendous responsibility.
Rubio is also set to become the US's first top diplomat to technically be barred from entering China. He was sanctioned by Beijing in 2020
for what?
For criticizing human rights violations of the Chinese government's crackdown in Hong Kong. In a statement, Trump called Rubio a true friend to America's allies. And as a vocal supporter of the AUKUS partnership, Rubio's appointment could work in Australia's favour. The foreign policy shake-ups don't end there. Elise Stefanik allied herself with Donald Trump during one of his impeachment trials and is now set to serve as ambassador to the United Nations. She's been an outspoken supporter of Israel.
Today, this means crushing anti-Semitism at home and supplying the state of Israel with
hit the like and subscribe button.
What it needs without conditions to achieve total victory in the face of evil.
Is Euro and travel here? Guys, this is like my morning show. If you really like this so far, this is like a morning show I do every day. Not every day, but most days, talking about politics and stuff like that. So hit the like and subscribe button and let me know where you guys are coming from, who you voted for and why.
After working as Trump's campaign co-chair, her tenure might be off to a rocky start, with Trump reportedly selecting his controversial pick for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz, without her knowledge. She was reportedly in an adjacent room on Trump's plane when the decision was made. Wiles has been working on campaigns since the Reagan era, including Trump's successful run in 2016. Talk of a crackdown on immigration and deportation were key in both of Donald Trump's victories, and will be looked after in the second Trump administration by the hardline trio of border czar Thomas Homan, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. And then there's that bromance, the world's richest man and the president-elect. Elon Musk, who immigrated to America in the 90s, will serve as co-head of the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, alongside Vivek Ramaswamy.
Hell yeah, that's our boy, Elon Musk.
Race earlier this year, but has since become a fierce supporter of the now president-elect. The so-called Doge won't actually be a government department. Instead, the two will lead an external advisory body dedicated to relaxing red tape, eliminating bureaucracy, and cutting expenditure.
Donald Trump wasn't afraid of putting Tom Homan and Kristi Noem in charge of the mass deportations of millions of illegals for this country. But I also want to thank him for making sure that Elon Musk and I are in a position to start the mass deportations of millions of unelected federal bureaucrats out of the D.C. bureaucracy.
Hell yeah, bye-bye, deep state.
This country.
Most of these roles will need to be confirmed by the Senate, where the Republicans will have control. The fall of Matt Gaetz has shown there is division in the Republican ranks and just how far Donald Trump may be willing or not to go for some of his picks. The president-elect is readying himself and his team to get to work straight after his inauguration on January 20.
Awesome, guys. Hit the like and subscribe button. We love Donald J. Trump and his strong, strong team. Some kind of terrifying game show. Trump releases avalanche of new cabinet picks. It's not a damn game show. These are people that are proven, that we know person to person. I'm tired of shit faces in the government that we never heard about. Like, if we never heard about someone, I kind of feel like that brings them a little bit of less accountability. Like, they don't really have as much accountability as, you know, like a celebrity. They don't have to be a celebrity. They don't have to be a known government person or politician. If they're a known politician, if anything, they're probably not 100% liked. But these are more known business people. He's bringing business people in the United States. Why does that scare Democrats? They don't like a good, strong business as a country?
Trump's full embrace of vote is further confirmation that Trump's proclaimed disinterest in Project 2025.
The propaganda machine, MSNBC. Propaganda 2025!
Following some heavy lobbying from the Teamsters Union.
Project 2025! Trump's gonna enact it!
Lori Chavez-DeRemer.
Trump is enacting Project 2025, guys! He's deporting everyone!
Republicans to co-sponsor the PRO Act, which protects and strengthens workers' rights to organize. Joining me now to talk this.
Hell nah, Trump doesn't want that.
Is Faz Shakir, senior
that can't be Trump. Trump's the devil. He's an Adolf Hitler.
Faz, thank you for joining me. It has been a flurry of news from Trump world tonight, and I want to kind of just tick through some of these appointments to hear what you have to say. First, let's talk about the Treasury Secretary, just because there was a lot of back and forth about who he was going to pick, whether this was someone Trump could rely on to enact his tariff plan, which has come with a lot of eyebrow raising on the part of a lot of economists. What do you make of someone who was once affiliated with George Soros, once worked for George Soros, played a key role in some of George Soros's investments, now part of the MAGA firmament?
Well, this has been an interesting fight because Elon Musk opposed Scott Bessent. He said he was business as usual and that business as usual would bankrupt the government. It became a major tussle between the Elon Musk wing of the Trump world versus Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, fresh out of jail, advocated strong. This was his major campaign. He had Bessent come on his show. He said, this is the guy. This is the MAGA movement person. He's going to enact our tariffs. And it became kind of so much of a tussle that Trump then looked to a third person, the head of Apollo, Mark Rowan, who was probably the highest profile person, who came to Mar-a-Lago, talked to him, and he went with Bessent. So the MAGA world, Steve Bannon wins this one. And you see in the flurry of all these other things, you can see Trump kind of doling out favors to various factions of his coalition tonight, but Steve Bannon got this one.
So a W on the board for Steve Bannon. And I would assume you feel that this is also a W for Steve Bannon and the fact that Justin Vogt, a mastermind is the word that's frequently used in the press to describe his work on Project 2025. Mastermind of Project 2025 being installed at OMB. Now, Vogt was there in the first term, but it is quite obvious, especially from the writings in Project 2025 that Russ Vogt oversaw, that he has some very clear, very extreme ideas about what to do next. What's your reaction to this one?
Well, with that one, Alex, for those who are frequent watchers of the Alex Wagner Show, will remember that 2 nights ago, you and I were talking about the cuts to Medicaid and to food stamps. And that was in the first Trump administration. It happened. Who executed that? When we saw all of those great protests in Capitol Hill over Medicaid cuts, who was the architect? Mr. Russell Vogt. He's back. And he's going to be here for the same thing. If you looked at the last budget that Donald Trump produced and sent out in 2020, it had massive cuts. I think it was over $1.5 trillion to Medicaid. It had massive cuts, it even cut Social Security, food stamps, of course. And so you can assume, looking both at Project 2025, which of course Trump said, oh, no, that's not going to have anything to do with me. Of course it is. And he's now named not only, Vogt, but Stephen Miller, Tom Homan, and Brendan Carr, a number of others who were authors of Project 25 to his administration. But you can assume he's going right at all the things you and I were talking about 2 nights ago, Medicaid, food stamps, the far-right agenda to attack working people.
Yeah, just to put a finer point on that, from the Project 2025 stable, he's named Tom Homan, who is Trump's border czar, John Ratcliffe, his planned nominee for CIA director, Brendan Carr, his selection for the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and Pete Hegstra, his selection for ambassador to Canada. Much respect to Canada. Let me
shout out Canada. I'll be there soon, guys. I'll be there soon, Canada. Shout out Canada.
And I'm real eager
See
to
you
hear
real
your thoughts on
soon.
this.
Hit the like and subscribe button. Share this video. Shout out Canada.
She was at the RNC she had a speaking slot at the RNC this summer, but she endorsed the PRO Act. She's been a friend to labor. Again, the Teamsters endorsement. I mean, I know you're familiar with this individual. What do you make of Trump's pick for her as labor secretary?
Well, it is a pro-labor pick, and this is a victory for Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, who advocated for, spoke at the RNC, as you mentioned, and went in big for this. And Sean O'Brien got opposed by much of the conservative movement, Competitive Enterprise Institute, Grover Norquist Group, all came out against Sean O'Brien's in Dreamer. And Trump went with them, and I think we all know why. He said, hey, I'm going to do something for my friend Sean O'Brien, which is great in the W.
Hit the like and subscribe button.
We are able to push pro-labor, and the world, the country needs it. However, the hostility that surrounds her is real. You got Elon Musk, you got Russell Vogt, we were just talking about. You've got Wall Street hedge fund guy Scott Bessent. These are not people who are ready to go flying with the pro-labor agenda. So she's got her work cut out for her, but it is at least one voice at a table where she is outgunned by very Wall Street friendly people who's going to have at least a labor voice. And there's moments where, of course, I think it could be helpful when workers go on strike. I will just note that in order to support the labor secretary, you also need an NLRB, National Labor Relations Board support. And so who Donald Trump picks for that needs to complement this direction if we're going to carve into being a pro-labor. But it is a decent first step here.
Yeah, I mean, it's already, first of all, it's Friday night and he's announced 320% of his cabinet in 5 minutes, right? That's chaotic. The actual picks themselves, some of whom we're going to get to a few more in just a second, but the fact that you have a pro-labor candidate at the Department of Labor and Elon Musk advising the president just is all the insight you need to know into how unified this group of people is going to be and the chaos that is bound to ensue with so many people at odds over such key issues.
Donald J. Trump, guys. Donald J. Trump. Let me know where you guys are coming from and who you voted for. If you like Trump, if you hate Trump. I love to hear from you guys. We got almost 50 people watching, but
welcome back as President-elect Trump forges ahead with.
Oh, we can tell by her looks. She loves Trump.
NBC News has new reporting.
No offense to anyone's looks or
Mr.
anything.
Trump's second term will look like. Transition officials tell NBC News that aides plan to roll out a flurry of executive actions aligned with campaign promises on the military and immigration for Trump to sign on his very first day in office. And joining me now is NBC News Digital senior White House reporter Peter Nicholas, who had this great reporting. So, Peter, what are you hearing from Trump officials about these executive actions that will happen on day one, and what will they include?
Well, we may see as many as half a dozen executive orders dealing with immigration alone. This is a much faster pace than we saw in 2016. And Trump is trying to make good on the promise that he's going to seal up the border. He's going to begin the process of deporting people who are living here illegally, with a focus on those who might represent national security threats. So he's going to convey a sense of action and purpose, all consistent with his campaign promises.
And when you think about that, you're thinking about campaign promises. He talks about literally ending the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East at warp speed. He said, are those foreign policy issues still a top sort of concern of his when you think about all the stuff he's saying about mass deportations and all the other things? Is foreign policy still a top of mind?
Certainly. There's some concern that that this approach may be too scattershot. We talked to Newt Gingrich, for example, former House Speaker and a close Trump ally, who said if you try to do too much, you may find yourself failing to enact some of the core promises. So he mentioned tax reform, which is another promise, which could, which also requires some focus. But yes, I mean, ending the war in Ukraine and Gaza is going to be a priority, but that's a diplomatic measure. That's something that's going to take some time. But you'll see movement on that quickly on the diplomatic front.
Yeah. I also want to ask you, it's interesting, you talk about all the movement that's going to happen. Trump walks in as a lame duck. I wonder how much that impacts his pace and his sense of urgency.
Well, I think that's exactly right, Mish, that in 2026, we're going to be moving, Congress's focus is going to be on the midterm elections. So there's really only a year or a year and a half window for him to take advantage of his high political capital and try to execute this agenda. So, and then, before we know it, people will be looking at 2028 when Trump can't run again. So this is his window where he really has to make good on these promises. And that's why I think you're
Yeah, get there! Donald J. Trump, hit the like and subscribe button, let's get it!
You're going to see. Do you think that Democrats are going to have sort of the wherewithal to push
Democrats will cry!
Is this going to happen?
I think a lot of it is just going to happen. And I think Trump feels he has a mandate. He feels it was a decisive victory. Democrats are in the minority. I mean, the Republican majority in the House and Senate is kind of thin, but Democrats are certainly going to try to be the resistance as best they can. But I think the public is of a mood to give Trump a chance and, to see if he can enact these priorities.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how much of a leeway he has to do all this. But thank you so much, Peter Nicholas.
Thank you, Mish.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
Welcome back. President-elect Trump rounding out his cabinet after his decisive election victory, officially nominating Marco Rubio for the Secretary of State role and picking Michael Waltz, Florida representative, to be his national security advisor. Both picks are harsh critics of China. The Wall Street Journal writes this: Trump is recruiting a team of China hawks, so why is Beijing relieved? They write President-elect Donald Trump is putting together what some China hawks call a tough-on-China dream team. Still, from Beijing's perspective, it could have been worse. People who consult with senior Chinese officials say that for now, at least Beijing is relieved that several Republicans considered particular threats by the Communist Party, include former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, are not in the mix. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow and author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, Gordon Chang, back with us. Gordon, great to see you. Mike Pompeo was the one who shut down the Houston embassy, told us that China was inside the gates and was really harsh in terms of, his treatment of China. He's not there, but what do you make of the others? Is this the dream team, hawks on China?
Well, they certainly are, both Rubio and Waltz. And this shows you how much the landscape on China has changed when Beijing could be relieved when severe China critics are appointed to important positions. The days of Henry Kissinger, when he advocated all this cooperation with the Chinese, those are so over because China delegitimized those people who wanted to have quote-unquote friendly relations. So this is good.
What did you want to say about agriculture right now?
Well, right now you have China buying up large tracts of agriculture and farmland, and no American can buy a square inch in China. So I hope that the new administration comes in through a number of different ways, not only laws, but also using CFIUS, the Treasury-led interagency panel, to make sure that the Chinese don't buy farm and ranch land.
That's a great point that the U.S. has no opportunity to do the same. You have a new op-ed in The Hill. It's titled, "To China, Trump is Poison." You write this: to the dismay of Chinese leaders who already had to deal with Trump for 4 years, they have not gotten the preferred outcome. They fear they can't talk to Trump through their upper class friends in America, and they want him nowhere near the lower rungs of China. Tell us more about this.
Well, the important thing about Trump is that Chinese people really love him. And it's not because of what he advocates. They don't like what he advocates. But the point is, he is so different from their leaders. Xi Jinping is scripted. He doesn't go out in public very often. He speaks in ideological tones. Trump is just sort of unscripted. He's just fresh air. It's like a gale force wind. Chinese people look at him and contrast him with their lifeless leaders, and they say, he's the guy we like. And that's very important for the Communist Party because they are worried about the inspirational impact of Americans on the Chinese people because the regime is so insecure.
Yeah, and I say this a lot, but Trump really set the tone in his first term when he invited Xi Jinping to Mar-a-Lago, and they had dinner.
Guys, hit the like and subscribe button.
When they were having, as Trump told me, the most beautiful chocolate cake that you've ever seen. He dropped this comment to Xi Jinping saying, "Oh, by the way, we just sent 13 strikes to Syria because Bashar used chemicals on his people." And Xi Jinping apparently turned to the translator and said, "Have him repeat that." He did. He repeated it. But that was the kind of action that Trump took to set the tone for Xi Jinping.
Yes, and Xi Jinping was relatively well behaved during the 4 years that Trump was in the Oval Office. It was when Biden came in that Xi Jinping and his good friend Vladimir Putin decided they were going to set the world on fire. So it's no coincidence that for the last 12 days or so, China has been very quiet in the East China Sea and South China Sea. This is really good news. I don't think it'll hold, but I think they're very worried about Trump. They're giving him a wide berth, and they're not doing all of those provocative acts that we have seen so much of over the last 4 years.
Well, look what happened over the last 4 years. You had a spy balloon travel across America and hover around our military installations. You had the fentanyl trade pickup. You have the Chinese, organized crime working with the drug cartels to make sure that they're doing drug trafficking and sex trafficking. The list is long. What else?
Yeah, well,
bullying our service people.
Well, and also trying to poison the American political system, as we've seen in this city, in this state.
Smash the like and subscribe button. Welcome back to my channel. Smash the like and the subscribe.
Every point of contact to try to take down our society, whether we're talking about farmland or we're talking about the senior advisor to the governor of New York.
So let's talk about the world's largest battery maker, Chinese company CATL, C-A-T-L, now considering building a plant in the United States if Trump allows it. The company's founder and chairman told Reuters he's open-minded to investing in the United States. Now, you know that Trump has floated the idea of allowing Chinese and other foreign car makers to build plants in the United States and hire American workers. Gordon, what about this, having China have its factory here in the U.S.?
Well, CATL, certainly not. CATL battery maker, Goshen, another Chinese battery maker, has plants in Michigan and Illinois. During the campaign, J.D. Vance came in and said, no, we should not allow these Goshen plants in our country. So I don't think they're going to allow CATL in either. And as for Chinese car makers, that's a non-starter, I think, with the American people, because we know that the Chinese engage in these predatory practices. They've been driving Detroit to the wall. I don't think we're going to let them inside the wall.
If I'm driving a car that was made in China, are they recording everything?
Well, if it's, yes. And that's one of the...
They're recording me in my car.
They're recording you in their car. They're getting all that data about where you're driving and all sorts of patterns. They're using that because they're planning attacks on America. You mentioned the spy balloon. That went over U.S. nuclear weapons facilities. We can't allow this.
Yeah, and I think they were sending information back in real time while they were hovering over the military installation. Go ahead.
I know you say this is all, I mean, this is all really scary stuff, and you say that they're going to sort of behave, you said for now. What do you expect is going to happen over the next, as the Trump administration gets started? Because is it just a window? Are they going to start misbehaving again, or where are we going here?
The problem is you have so many domestic pressures inside of China right now to cause Xi Jinping to lash out. You have these extraordinary bike riding movement in the central part of China. You have the detention, a rumored detention of a senior Communist Party admiral who is very influential. He's on the party's Central Military Commission. All sorts of things are going wrong inside China. That guy who killed 35 people with his car, that shows you Chinese society right now is very volatile. Xi Jinping may have to react to that in his mind, going after some country or maybe even the United States.
President Biden is now heading to the APEC summit. Gordon, I want to get your take on this. The summit is in Lima, Peru. He's going to be meeting with a dozen world leaders. He'll have a one-on-one with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Saturday. The Associated Press says that Biden is headed to the summit with a diminished reputation and that Trump's victory has, quote, pulled the rug out from under the lame duck Democrat. Your reaction? What's going to happen with him meeting with Xi Jinping in China? In Peru for this meeting?
Yeah, I don't think very much is going to come out of this because, Biden is leaving his office and Trump has come in with a resounding victory. APEC, the meeting where they are, is a talk shop. Nothing ever happens at an APEC meeting. And nothing ever good happens when an American president talks to a Chinese one, at least during the Biden administration. So I don't think we're going to see any good come out of this. They'll try to constrain the United States by coming to agreements, maybe. But Trump will not respect that. He shouldn't. He should not.
Well, he's leaving office. They don't need him anymore.
Yeah, they don't need him
There you go. Gordon, thank you. Welcome back. Bitcoin has been on fire. Take a look at Bitcoin this morning at 93,761. The cryptocurrency touching a new all-time high of about $94,000 yesterday. As the Trump rally continues, Trump Media and Technology Group also reportedly in advanced talks to acquire crypto exchange Bakkt. Bakkt says it does not comment on, quote, market rumors or speculation. The acquisition would mark Trump's latest move into the world of crypto after promising to explore crypto-friendly policies on the campaign trail. Joining me now is the CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse. Brad, great to see you.
Very good to see you.
Thanks so much for being here. Tell us how Ripple fits into this whole crypto framework that we're actually understanding better and better recently.
So from the earliest days, Ripple has been focused on solving the problem around cross-border payments. It's slow, it's expensive, and we use a digital asset called XRP to help speed that up, make it very inexpensive and very reliable. But the challenge, as you know well, is the U.S. has had this very hostile. The Biden administration has been waging a war on crypto, and I think an unlawful war. Courts have agreed with us on that. And we're finally seeing that kind of unlocked in a Trump embraced crypto and crypto embraced Trump. And I think we're seeing that reflect in kind of how the markets have reacted since the election.
So for Ripple, do you think that this also unlocks new revenue opportunities for you in the U.S.? Because I know the customer base largely outside the U.S.
You're exactly right. The United States SEC filed a lawsuit about what is XRP 4 years ago. And so it kind of froze the U.S. market opportunity for us. If you're a U.S. bank or U.S. financial institution, you're like, let's just wait and see how this plays out. So 95% of our customers are outside the United States. And finally, I think we're at a point where we can actually see growth and see the crypto industry thrive here in the United States. The largest economy in the world has really been leaning out of the crypto economy.
And giving it up to China.
There's no question. Like, it's growing in the UK, it's growing in Japan, it's growing in Switzerland. These are big economies that are leaning, the U.S. really has been the outlier in many ways.
Yeah, it's a great point. So talk to us about your outlook for crypto under the Trump administration and this deregulation that Trump is underway, thinking about and talking about. Look, he's been putting together a cabinet. We still don't have his idea on a Securities and Exchange Commission head, CFTC head. All of these agencies want a piece of you, want a piece of the crypto industry. They all want to have some kind of a regulatory, role here. Do you think you get more clarity under the Trump administration on who's running things?
Yes. We want them to have a role. And as you know well, one of the biggest problems the crypto industry has had isn't the idea there's too much regulation. It's just the regulation is not even clear. We're trying to apply laws from literally 1946, a famous Supreme Court case called the Howey test. So we're trying to apply that to a digital asset industry that's been developed in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And so it just doesn't fit. And I think as we bring this new, really the Trump cabinet to bear, getting those clear rules, which we've been asking for under the Biden administration for years, I think we're finally going to get that clarity, which will help the U.S. lead again. And I think, Trump talks about making America great again. I think he's going to make crypto great again in the United States.
No, he certainly talks about it a lot and wants more in terms of the U.S. role in that. Trump reportedly meeting privately with the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, on Monday to discuss key appointments for the second Trump administration. So Fox Business's Edward Lawrence spoke to Coinbase chief policy officer about that meeting. Watch this.
We're gratified by the degree that the Trump team has had an open door with us and given us an opportunity to talk about our vision about crypto and to see them ultimately adopt much of that. We're very excited to do our part to fulfill the president's vision of making the U.S. a crypto and digital asset leader of the world. There's a lot of work to be done. There was a lot of damage done over the last 4 years that all of us in the industry and working with our policymakers can kind of get going on to restore U.S.'s position as a global leader.
Well, I'll tell you, I think it would speak volumes if Trump put in a crypto expert in the SEC. That would be unbelievable. Or CFTC. Where does Coinbase fit into all of this?
I mean, Coinbase has been a really important voice in this. I think three key players came together during this election cycle. Coinbase, Ripple, and Andreessen Horowitz came together to really make sure that crypto was front foot on the agenda. And I think we will get someone at the SEC who is very familiar with crypto. There's a couple names still in the mix that I think are very strong candidates. And the nice thing is, these are people who don't go in with we're going to attack this industry. And it really did turn out to be, at a minimum, unethical and a maximum unlawful. And again, federal courts are saying that, not just Bragg Garlinghouse.
Right. And Trump has talked about the stablecoin industry as well. You're about to launch a stablecoin, is that right?
We are indeed. Ripple announced not too long ago, we're announcing something called RLUSD or Ripple USD. The stablecoin market now is 170 or about $180 billion.
I don't even understand how they make money from stablecoins.
We think there's an opportunity for the Ripple of the world. We're an institutional use case, selling into banks, solving that cross-border, and really making payments cheaper, faster. We think this is a perfect use case of these technologies.
I guess that makes sense,
but slowly but surely you're seeing financial services get it and start implementing crypto, stablecoins in their businesses. Trump, of course, has vowed to fire SEC Chairman Gary Gensler on day one. He said day one. And Gensler has recently signaled that he may soon resign after President-elect Trump's massive election win. Here's a look at some of the rumored contenders Trump is considering for the chairman of the SEC, Brad. And I want to get your take on what's the most important thing that person should do in the early days of this new role at the SEC, should one of these folks get them?
I think working with Congress and identifying here's the gaps in the existing laws that create the confusion. I think, I don't know all those candidates personally, but there's a bunch of very strong candidates up there that I think aren't going to pretend that, hey, the rules are clear. Gary Gensler would testify in front of Congress and literally say the rules are clear, but in the next sentence, he wouldn't answer the question, is ETH a security? So to me, it's just this, head in the sand. It's a new dawn for crypto in the United States, and I think we really can make this the heartbeat of the crypto and blockchain industry in the next 5 or 10 years.
For so many people, they feel like the people who are writing these rules, writing the framework for crypto, actually don't understand it. I mean, do you think Gary Gensler actually understands the crypto business?
One of the most frustrating things about Gary Gensler, he actually taught classes at MIT about crypto. And if you watch the videos of him teaching these classes, and then you listen to him after he became the chair of the SEC under Elizabeth Warren's kind of guidance.
I see where you're going.
It was a night and day difference. And so
he is smart, he understands, but he's political.
Extremely. And hypocritical.
Yeah.
Look, literally the federal courts were calling the SEC under his leadership, these are exact quotes, arbitrary and capricious, failing to follow a faithful allegiance to the law.
Wow.
They were even sanctioned in one case in Utah. The SEC was sanctioned by a federal judge. This is not what we want from our government institutions, to work for the people and to actually protect investors.
All right, we will leave it there. Brad, great to see you.
Great to see you.
Thanks so much. Great insights from you, Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple.
Brad.
We'll be right back.
Brad. UFOs. Hit the like and subscribe button.
Or otherwise to speculate on points of origin.
Arrow needs to bolster the quantity, quality, and diversity of data that it acquires and examines.
It's intriguing that Arrow, the Office of All Domain Anomaly Resolution office in the Pentagon under the Director of National Intelligence, reports about objects they cannot identify because there are two possible interpretations. Either this office is not doing what they are supposed to do, which is to identify national security threats, and that could involve espionage by adversarial nations. That by itself is a very serious admission. The second possibility is that these are objects that arrive at Earth from outside the solar system, and they represent technologies that were not manufactured by humans, which is an even bigger story. It would be the most significant scientific discovery in the history of science. And so we are faced with two very serious possibilities. And what that means is that we need to develop better techniques, better data acquisition methods, such that we can infer the nature of objects like that.
Has there been any, to your knowledge, any communication with a non-human life form?
So the term communication is a bit of a trick word because there's no communication like we're having now. The problem is you also have nonverbal communication, and so
that's what we've had with the aliens.
Yes, but from a nonverbal meaning, when a Russian reconnaissance aircraft comes into U.S. airspace, we scramble two F-22s, and we are certainly communicating intent and capability. I think the same goes with this. We have these things that are being observed over controlled U.S. airspace. And they're not really doing a good job hiding themselves. They're making it pretty obvious. They have the ability to even interfere with our nuclear equities.
Former counterintelligence officer Luis Elizondo spoke about UAPs that can move at speeds of up to 3,000 Gs in what he described as being intelligently controlled. What's your take on this, and is it a priority to take these testimonies seriously?
Currently, there is electronics on artillery shells that are capable of sustaining 100,000 G. So we do have the technologies that allow very rapid accelerations, way beyond what the human body can tolerate, up to about 10 G. And so the fundamental question is whether the objects that Lou Elizondo talks about are manufactured by adversarial nations, or they represent technologies from outside the solar system. And of course, without seeing the data or the evidence, we cannot tell. It's very natural for government agencies to have retrieval and reverse engineering programs from crash sites, because that's one way of learning about the technologies of adversarial nations, by direct analysis of the kind of equipment they use. And one might even find biologics in those sites because those devices might have had pilots. And so the existence of programs of this nature in government is not surprising. What would be surprising is if we have proof that they actually encountered data, either imagery or materials, that implies that these are objects produced outside the solar system.
And there seems to be a feeling that his return to presidency could open up the possibility of UAP secrets being released in the future.
The new administration might be more open to...
You're not muted on here, and I don't ever remember anyone ever proving me wrong. Certainly not someone named Alex Wallish.
Are manufactured by humans, and it's probably a mixed bag, and we know of those. And then the question is, what about the others? And
are you still mad Trump won and you're crying about it, little baby boy?
They will probably not be welcoming any release of this data because it may compromise information that is of national security importance. It's only in those cases where it's clear that the human-made technologies cannot reproduce what we have, that the question will arise as to whether to share it with scientists openly, because it's a scientific matter. Government did that in the early 1970s. There were flashes of gamma rays detected by sensors in orbit around the Earth that were aiming to detect any nuclear explosions above the atmosphere by the Russians, just to make sure that they abide by a treaty not to have such explosions out there. And then every day or
Donald J. Trump. Alex, does that make you cry? Donald Trump. Every time I say his name, you cry a little bit. Billionaires beef.
Surprise, surprise, the world's wealthiest person, Elon Musk, is feuding again with the third richest person, Jeff Bezos. And this time, it's over comments Bezos allegedly made about Trump.
Tesla and SpaceX founder Musk is claiming, without evidence, that Amazon founder Bezos was saying President-elect Trump would lose the election.
He said he heard.
On X, quote, just learned tonight at Mar-a-Lago that Jeff Bezos was telling everyone that real Donald Trump would lose for sure, so they should sell all their Tesla and SpaceX stock.
Bezos quickly clapped back, replying on Musk's platform X, nope, 100% not true. Musk did not disclose who told him about the supposed comments, but quickly retreated on the self-waged battle, responding, well then, I stand corrected, with a laughing emoji at the end.
Bezos and Musk have a long and storied history of feuding with each other, most notably over the Forbes Billionaire list in 2021. But there's a bigger rift between them, and that concerns their rival space race companies, Blue Origin and, of course, SpaceX. So, is Musk trying to keep Jeff Bezos away from the upcoming Trump administration?
It sure seems that way. I would be kind of surprised if Jeff Bezos was running around talking.
Buddy, my record is clean as a whistle. I have no chomo charges and pedo charges on there like you do. I'm certified street. There's no smut on my record.
Telling people that he didn't believe Trump was going to win, considering the fact that he had the Washington Post forgo an endorsement of Kamala Harris. He was saying some pretty measured things about Donald Trump in the lead up to the election, which you wouldn't expect considering those two had kind of their own feud during the first administration, with Trump often tweeting about the Bezos Washington Post and how much he hated the paper.
Buddy, I'm not a sexual predator. You are. I just called you a chomo. I guess you're mad about it.
And I think we actually talked about this in several segments, that he was actually hedging.
You're a predator.
In the event that Trump was going to win.
Yeah, no, it very much seemed that way.
Alex Wallish is a child predator.
You know, if he had wanted to just cease giving endorsements, the time to announce that was a long time before.
Alex Wallish is a sexual predator. Hey, what's up, Cody? Salute to all the real. Fuck all the people like Alex that are child predators. I will just leave it there. I'm not going to say what I'll do on YouTube.
In the event of a win. And I guess the bigger point here, Amber, which you kind of alluded to, is the fact that both of these guys have enormous business interests at stake through contracts that come through the federal government. And you mentioned about how during the first Trump administration there was the back and forth between Trump and Bezos, particularly on Trump's social media accounts.
Hell yeah, I'm bragging about it. I beat up a chomo.
Contract, I believe worth many billions, about cloud computing.
Alex, I beat up a chomo that looks like you. That's my charges. Domestic violence against chomos.
Suggestion of, like, was that payback for the Washington Post?
Do you know what a chomo is? Because that's what you are.
Of course, with Amazon and the Washington Post. So, you know, where my sort of worries are beyond what is the amusing jabbing between Musk and Bezos is the kind of clientelism of it, or the vested business interests that are at stake.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And obviously Elon Musk is trying to prevent Bezos to an extent of cozying up to Trump after their previous acrimonious relationship.
Whereas Bezos is trying to, especially through the Washington Post, send a signal that he's open for business. In addition to preventing the Washington Post from issuing an endorsement, he's also been talking about how they need to hire more conservatives to the editorial team or to the opinion pages, and how their coverage.
It's a big chance, Amber.
I'll, you know what? I'll join the Washington Post when Jennifer Rubin makes good on her promise to resign. Because I remember when the Los Angeles Times did not endorse, she was praising the people who resigned in protest and said that it was the only moral action that they could take. But she's been oddly silent since the Washington Post didn't endorse.
That was quite amusing. We discussed her yesterday, but there were a lot of people going, your turn, after she had taken the high-minded stance of saying other people in other companies should resign, and she did not. Anyway, I interrupted your thought, I think, which was about trying to make the Washington Post more conservative.
Oh, yeah, and it's obviously a business-based decision. I don't think anyone believes that Jeff Bezos is a super politically ideological guy anyway. But when trusted media is at an all-time low, when subscribers are fleeing papers, from both sides, by the way, because they did lose a lot of subscribers over this decision not to endorse in the hopes that they might gain back subscribers.
No one is worked up, buddy. I'm just laughing. Only one that's worked up is the people commented on my damn YouTube. Yeah, shut up, Custers. Shut up.
So they're in this very
go back to scrolling on YouTube, you Custer.
No one is thrilled with their coverage or the decisions that they're making. And Bezos is.
I've done things. I don't have to prove myself to anybody.
That people are going to come.
Because my community people know what I did. I don't got to go on the internet and brag about it.
What the alternative is, because the current course obviously is not conducive to running a newspaper and making revenue and having a large subscriber base.
No, and obviously what liberals would say about the Washington Post Bezos situation is that they feel that he bent the knee to Trump in the expectation or plausible possibility that Trump was going to win the election, and that it then telegraphed that
hell yeah, Donald J. Trump as president. The president is a damn felon. What are you complaining about felons for?
I think that the Washington Post, like any news,
Trump's a felon. The president of the United States is a felon. How do you feel, sucker?
Over time, people have become less trusting of the idea that there is a division between the editorial pages and the news product, and I think sometimes that is better founded than others. I think, for what it's worth, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal do a better job of keeping those separate than the Washington Post does, because I do think that the Post's news coverage does sometimes lean somewhat.
No, I don't support whatever. I don't support criminals. I support good, morally minded people like Donald J. Trump. He has some good, solid morals. He's never gonna snitch on his. He's never gonna snitch on anybody. Donald J. Trump.
Actually, I think it is. I would describe it as center left, but I would say their editorial page is certainly more conservative.
Yeah. I would say that
Custa stay running their mouth. If you don't know what Custa is, that's a motherfucking buster with a C at the front of it.
I'm sure the feud between Mr. Musk.
Buster, again, shut up.
But we'll see how they receive. Musk certainly in pole position when it comes to coaching up.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm sure we're going to continue to cover what's going on with Doge as well. But of course, we have a lot more to cover today on Rising. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back.
Or he's going to take your buster ass in the back alley and show you. That's probably what's going to happen if I had to guess.
As expected, breaking news. President-elect Donald Trump will name Key Square Capital Management CEO Scott Bessent to be his Treasury Secretary. Bessent is the founder of Key Square Capital
Keyboard warrior. Y'all some damn keyboard warriors.
Lead the Treasury Department. He has been really one of the finance world's most vocal supporters of President-elect Trump. And he has been an advisor, a key economic advisor to the president-elect and his team, talking about economic policies. He has suggested...
if you guys support the real felons, hit the like and subscribe button for Donald J. Trump.
To 3% of gross domestic product by 2028, spurring GDP growth by 3% through deregulation and producing an additional 3 million barrels of oil or its equivalent a day. He is seen as a key economic advisor, and now, after a long process, which took some time to find a Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, the hedge fund manager, is the pick for President-elect Donald Trump. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson is in West Palm Beach, Florida.
That's what I thought, Buster.
This had long been thought that he was always in the mix. There were others like Kevin Warsh, former Fed governor, who was said to be possibly a Treasury Secretary.
Buster's just crying in his truck right now because he knows Trump is going to deport him. That's unfortunate, Mr. Custer.
Right, and that was the Wall
Trump
Street
will deport
Journal's
you,
reporting
but
that they would potentially think about
because he's a violent criminal that came in illegally.
The idea of putting Warsh at Treasury and then moving him over to the Federal Reserve in a few years from now. But right now, according to a transition official, the pick is Scott Bessent will be the nominee to lead up the Treasury Department. This is a major economic position, often running point for administrations, because at the Treasury
Cody, you're a real
you're
one.
talking about just general economic policy, you're talking about tax policy, they run the IRS, you're talking about a whole list of regulatory issues that go through the Treasury Department. So this is a big pick and a big job. We have been hearing a number of different names for a couple of weeks now, and the president-elect we had heard wasn't happy with how some...
See, you're running your mouth about stuff I don't know. What do I not know? Please educate me, Mr. Buster. I can tell with your bullcrap language and the fact that you never left your city in the last 50 years of your life that you know so much. You're probably even Harvard educated, just like myself.
A number of economists have criticized the president-elect for the idea that he wants to put tariffs on a number of items coming into the United States, not just on wholly made items, but components that might be assembled here. Bessent has embraced that. In fact, what he has said is that the U.S. should
Custer, Mr. Custer, are you Harvard educated? Because I got that diploma.
For three reasons. He said Hamilton liked it because it funds the U.S. Treasury. Secondly, it says it protects American industries. But he says there's a third reason, and that's that the president-elect or then President Trump can use it as leverage in negotiations. So he's a supporter of that. The transition team sees that that's something that the president-elect and then president's going to want to work with here, someone who's embracing this type of economic policy. And so therefore he's got the nod, and this nomination will head up to the U.S. Senate, see if he can get it through. Back to you.
Yeah, he graduated from Yale in 1984, had a long career on Wall Street, obviously.
No, Alex, I was actually not talking to Buster. I was talking to your ass. Your ass is a Camilla Harris supporter. So I already know you're going to get deported on the first week of Trump's presidency. Because you're a fucking criminal and you came in illegally.
LGBTQ plus member in a Republican cabinet. Rick Grinnell became the first openly gay acting cabinet member when Trump tapped him as the acting director of national intelligence in 2020. But he has been...
Oh, also, you're pissed off that Trump told you that we're not paying for your dick to be ripped off. We're not paying with our taxpayer money to have your penis ripped off for a transgender surgery. We're not paying for that with our money. So go knock at Camilla Harris's door and ask her ass if she'll pay for your surgery, because I ain't.
We talked an awful lot about tariff policy here and how important that is to the president-elect. He mentioned it an awful number of times. In fact, can't count the number of Trump speeches I've been to over the past couple of months.
All Harris supporters want that. Every single damn one of them. They want tampons in the little boys' bathrooms, and they want to cut their wieners off.
As someone who knows Wall Street and who knows investing, and that's important too for a Treasury Secretary. It's not just the Fed chair that monitors markets, it's the Treasury as well. And the Treasury is so much...
You voted Harris. Just admit it. Just admit that you're upset that she sucks ass. She was too stupid to win.
It's a hand-in-glove relationship. The president needs to feel comfortable working with his Treasury Secretary on economic policy. You saw the first term around, all the cabinet members that came through the Trump administration. One spot you had pretty good staying power there, and an ear he listened to an awful lot was the ear of Steve Mnuchin, who was right down Pennsylvania Avenue, the Treasury building, and the campus.
The only one scared is the sissy-ass Kamala Harris supporters, like yourself.
So this is a pick that is very, very important for the president's economic policy.
Keep being scared that Trump is going to fuck up your life, because you live off the government money, buddy. I'm sure Trump will fuck that up.
As well, and knowing markets, knowing capital markets like that was also another huge selling point into this pick.
Yeah. And actually, the markets, just talking to a number of experts on Wall Street and around, there was this calming factor about Scott Bessent.
I have all the knowledge about you I need. These aren't assumptions. You're a Harris supporter. It's not an assumption, it's a fact.
For President-elect Trump, again, his nominee for Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Rich Edson in West Palm. Rich, thanks.
Anyway, I'll just let you Harris supporters eat some
I
more.
would say that my
Eat
experience
some
at the
more of this
RNC has really
Republicanness.
shown me, serving the American people.
Eat this conservative
I was
value.
actually
Shove them
serving
down
my,
your
home
throat.
state now of Florida. It's a great honor, and
I'm just kidding. This is all acting. It's all acting.
I
It's
would
just a
love
joke.
to be able
For
to
comedy
go forward and
purposes.
do more. If this is something I'm asked to do, I would seriously consider it. But I have yet to hear from Governor DeSantis, so we'll see what happens.
And that is the
Oh,
RNC
Mr.
clip
Alex,
Sarah
those are
Trump
very
with
interesting
Monica
types of
Maria this week about her
stores.
interest in
Maybe you are a bit
Senator
more
Mucker was-
successful than I gave credit for. Okay, respect to you. Respect to you. But still, if you're so successful or if you own 2 businesses, then why wouldn't you, get off my live and go check out how much profits you made? Like, you might want to be calling those businesses and saying, hey, what's the profits? It's, Saturday morning. Did we make any money yet? But I don't know why you're on my live, but if you are a successful business person, if you do like investments, if you do like businesses like that, I'm not in my basement. I'm actually in my own apartment, my own condo, my own place, with no roommates. I don't know if you can say the same. No, nothing. Just by myself. 2 nice laptops, got a nice room, got a nice, everything. Yes, you need to look. You ain't that rich to not be looking at your money. Shut your ass up. Like, you got to be checking your money. Donald Trump, people like that, the big businessmen, the cent-die millionaires, you know what that means? People with $100 million or more. They check their money every damn day. And you don't make money when your business is closed unless you're invested in the stock market or other things like that. But there's a Discord chat. I see you love communicating with me. So if you like talking with me, please join my Discord chat. We have investors, bankers, business people, entrepreneurs, doctors, all kinds of different people in my Discord. I mean, I'm not making a fool out of myself. I'm actually making money. I mean, their business is their investment, isn't it? Buster, you're a retard. No, they check their investments, not their money. Bruh, their money is the investment in the business is the money. No, you're wrong. Rich people that actually care about their money going up, you might think $2 million is a lot, but $2 million is less than a lot of people spend in a week. So you might be thinking, oh, I just made like the deal of my lifetime. I made $2 million. I don't really know if that's true or not. But if it is true, that's interesting. But you got to change your perspective a little bit. Like, you got to stop. You have like a comfortable mindset. Like, you have a mindset, in my opinion, as someone that grew up with money. Like, I think you did grow up with a good amount of money. Probably your parents were lawyers, doctors, whatever. They had like tens of millions of dollars. You really didn't worry too much. So that's why you don't care about money or growing your business. You just say $2 million. You're like, I was rich all my life. Well, that's what I now make monthly because of this deal. $2 million monthly? Okay, that's cool, but you still have taxes. $10 million a year is... I know people that made $10 million a year, that do make $10 million a year. But I'm just saying, like, you got to elevate your mindset, even if you are making 10 or 20 million a year. This is my advice to you, like, elevate your mindset a little bit. Don't be so close-minded, because that can really keep you from taking that 10 or 20 million a year you're getting and getting to the next level. I mean, obviously, I'm not a person to talk about it because I don't have $100 million, but I do watch a lot of educational content. Rather you agree with my politics or don't, I am educated. I do speak a lot of net profit after taxes. Okay, even if you make 22 million a year, there's still more people making more. 22 million a year, you still can't buy a private jet, with all due respect. You still can't buy $100 million. You can't buy a Trump level private jet. You can't buy a Grant Cardone level private jet. You can't even buy, like, you know, there's stuff you still can't buy. Let's be realistic. I know you're happy. Congratulations on your success. Congratulations. And if you are successful, then I will say you're probably the biggest liberal dickhead I've ever met. Obviously, according to you, your education isn't your success story. So I don't know why you're, like, trying to shit on me so much, saying I'm not educated. I don't really believe that you make $20 million a year, though. I'll be straight up honest. And now you're asking me about tariffs. Yeah, you definitely don't make shit. You're just fucking lying. After a few messages, I can really add things up if you're being honest or not, because you're just saying shit. You don't make $20 million a year, because I actually do know people that make $20 million a year, and you're not one of them.
Rubio's seat in the Senate. Should he be confirmed as U.S. Secretary of State? The position to be appointed by
I mean, obviously I'm educated enough for your ass to keep trying to argue with me. I'm just getting views and money off this. Because with Trump's policy, I'm the one losing out on his on money with his new policies. 2 seconds ago, you just told me you don't care about money and you make $20 million a year and you don't need to check your money. Which one is it? Are you losing money or do you not need to look at your money? You're fucking full of shit, dude. You're full of shit. You do not make any kind of... Is this the Millionaires Club? Oh, sorry. I was looking for the Billionaires Club. Well, you think you're laughing at me, but you don't realize every time you click on my video or a comment, you're helping me make money, but that's cool with me. No one's laughing at me except your old ass, so enjoy, 40 or 50-year-old dude just sitting there watching me. I don't watch anyone else on YouTube. All I do is enjoy my life and enjoy all the fun I have traveling around the world, because that's all I really do. I travel around the world. I make political live streams. I enjoy myself pretty well. If you've seen some of my videos, I'm sure you know that I am educated and I do know what I'm talking about, and I am world experienced. A lot of you guys might have the college education, like you might have the Harvard degree, or you might have etc., Stanford, MIT, whatever, but the one thing that you don't have, that you can never have, what I have is the travel and life experience. You guys have just been sitting in the same states, the same cities, like the entire time, like your whole life. You never really experienced like outside of the country. You never really experienced outside of your city before. Like once you experience outside of like, Florida, Wyoming, Texas, wherever the hell you random people are commenting from, probably some shitty places and states. Some from Florida, so I love it. But yeah, once you experience something outside of that, once you go to different countries and experience different places, a lot of people have said, like, once you experience a lot of places, then you'll see. Like, even some of my relatives and stuff, they tell me, like, oh, like, I've been all over the world. Like, then I ask them, they're like, yeah, I've been, like, to Europe. And, like, some people have been all over the world, but, like, the thing is, I say to them, have you really lived in other places? Like, you can travel to other places. Sure, everyone's traveled everywhere, but I've lived in other countries, like, so, like, you actually have that experience. I'm not going to really, like, sit here and read through all the comments anymore because I want to get back to the video, and also I just can't keep up with them. Because, like you guys said, I'm not educated, so I just can't read anything, But my Harvard University degree says differently. And, yeah, so let's get back to the video because we're going to be talking about, like, Big Pharma is going to spend like you wouldn't believe to stop RFK. But, yeah, I've been to, like, a lot of places. I will say, though, a lot of people say they traveled around the world, but all they've been to is, like, America and Europe. There's a lot more to the world than America and Europe. Like, America, Europe, even if you've been to South and North America and you've been to Europe, I would say that's probably not even 50% of the world. There's still a lot of different cultures and stuff to go into. But I really do appreciate that all you guys would be commenting on my videos constantly and, like, taking your time to watch me, because I really don't watch anyone else on YouTube. Like, all I do is watch my own videos, and I make more videos. I'm a producer. Some people waste their time watching other people's videos. I really appreciate, like, when people watch my videos and stuff like that. Like, that means the world to me, because, I'm getting, like, I'm partnering with YouTube or whatever. I'm just waiting for the email and all the stuff like that. So this will be a good little side business for me. And also we got like a Discord, you know, I got, like I said before, we talk about stocks, global politics, different stuff like that. But yeah, let's get back to the video. Big Pharma is going to spend like you won't believe.
DeSantis. Meanwhile, President-elect Trump is expected to sign several executive orders in its first 100 days to secure the border and tap into America's energy capacity to rein in inflation and spark economic growth. In 2021, President Biden issued 42 executive orders during his first 100 days in the Oval Office, undoing many of Trump's first-term policies, including construction of the southern border wall and the Remain in Mexico program. Joining me now with President Trump's plans in the first 100 days and beyond is Trump Organization Executive Vice President and President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr. Don, great to have you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Maria.
Donald
Trump. Do you want
Trump.
to see your sister as Senator Trump?
Listen, I think it'd be great. I think she understands our base. She understands the movement. You see what's going on in Florida. I mean, it is a solid red state.
Hell yeah, Florida's the best state in the country.
40 points.
If you don't live in Florida, I feel bad for your ass.
We went from minus 30 to plus 10 Republican. I mean, I think that's a mandate if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. I know that you've played a major role in helping to shape President Trump's cabinet. I'd like to know, what is the common theme behind these choices, if there is one?
I think the reality this time is we actually know what we're doing. We actually know who the good guys and the bad guys are. We know who the guys are fake. And it's about surrounding my father with people who are both competent and loyal. They will deliver on his promises. They will deliver on his message. They are not people who think they know better as unelected bureaucrats. And so a big part of that process is just something that we didn't understand in 2016, where he came to Washington, D.C. He had no experience. He didn't know any.
My friend here, he lives in Florida with Donald J. Trump. We got Mar-a-Lago. Florida is honestly the best state in the country. If you never, other than maybe like, I don't know, somewhere cool like Hawaii, I've been there. But if you never lived on the water before, I will say, if you never lived on the water before, I feel bad for you, because living on the water is the best thing. Like, I don't want to live in some state in the middle of the country. That shit is horrible. Like, all you do is see some random terrain or mountains. Like, I need the water to be near me. Like, even when I live in Europe, like I'm living in now, I live super close to the ocean. Like, I always love living super close to the ocean. It's the best place to live.
Any of the 4,000 people that make up the Plum Book, which are the presidential appointees.
That's why the rich live there. The poor people can't afford it.
So powerful in delivering the America First message that the American people clearly voted for on November 5th.
Will you have a specific role in the administration? How do you see as the best way to help serve your father and the nation?
No, I don't want to roll in the administration. I want to be very active until January 20th. I want to make sure the people that surround him are the greatest people we can possibly assemble, the smartest minds. You know, when you look at it, not just this cabinet, but the people who are on the outside, whether it's Ilhan, Bobby Kennedy obviously being in the cabinet on the health side, Vivek, who you had on earlier in the show. I mean, we have an incredible opportunity, perhaps a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really make a difference with people, minds that you wouldn't otherwise find in government, frankly. It's truly something that's epic. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I just want to make sure that the rest of the cabinet that surrounds my father is able and willing to deliver on that message and that promise to the American people. And when we do, I think we can do incredible things.
Has your father talked about backup plans? I mean, what if some of these people are not confirmed? There's been a lot of backlash over some of them.
Listen, there's always, ideas. We have lists of people. We're not just randomly picking a name out of a hat. We're showing him lists of 10 or 12 people for every position. So we do have backup plans, but I think we're obviously going with the strongest candidates first. Some of them are going to be controversial. They're controversial because they'll actually get things done. The swamp doesn't want that. So we're going to go all in and make sure that those people have the best chance at getting confirmed as possible, because they're the people who are most effective. When you see that kind of backlash, generally speaking, it's because it's a threat to the Uni Party in Washington, D.C. They don't want to see change. They want it to be business as usual. They don't want to be disrupted. That's their meal plan. That's their ticket. That hasn't worked for the American people. It hasn't served them well. We haven't had the most competent people in government in a very long time, and it's why you've had the disaster. It's also why you saw the response from the American people. Despite the overwhelming majority of the mainstream media and big tech going against my father, the American people spoke, and they spoke loudly.
Yeah, and many of the picks are not traditional names. They don't come from think tanks. They aren't assistants of people who were in power before. So walk us through some of these ideas. Matt Gaetz has certainly sparked lots of conversation, as has Pete Hegseth and RFK Jr. Do you expect Matt Gaetz to face pushback?
I think a lot of them are going to face pushback for the same reasons. Again, they are going to be actual disruptors. That's what the American people want, but Washington, D.C. doesn't want that. They're going to spend a lot of money on it. You know, Big Pharma is going to spend a lot of money like you wouldn't believe, trying to stop Bobby Kennedy from exposing what's going on with Big Pharma and, you know, Big Ag, the poisoning of our kids and our loved ones for years. They've gotten away with it for far too long. It doesn't work. The wealthiest country in the world can't also be the most unhealthy because of what we're doing to our children. So there's going to be pushback. There's going to be a lot of money spent. It will all be artificial, but that doesn't mean we won't have to deal with it, because that's how Washington, D.C. works, Maria.
Yeah, you're seeing reaction all over the place, and there's a real optimism in the air for President Trump and his goals to spark economic growth and get America back to where it is. You were at the UFC fight last night. I saw you all there, and the president took the belt. I know that you had a late night. What kind of a reception did you get?
Honestly, it was epic. You're actually witnessing in real time, Maria, a cultural phenomenon, a cultural shift like we've probably never seen before. Who would have thought? You know, loving your country is actually cool. Fighting for it, fighting for our future and the next generation is actually cool. People finally get it, despite the onslaught from the mainstream media, despite the billions spent by big tech trying to say otherwise. People get it. You know, watching John Jones come over there, and frankly, all of the fighters, they all came over and showed my father respect. I mean, whether they won or lost, Michael Chandler put up a great fight, didn't win in the end, but came up. People are getting it. It's cool to beat MAGA. Making America great again is actually really cool. It always was, Maria, but it's always hard to go up against that tide and that money that was spent so aggressively against us. It's no longer working. The American people are aligned. They're unified in putting our country first. They're unified for fighting for their incredible American dream, and that's just an amazing thing to see.
Will the president need to fight a tide in the Senate? How are you feeling about John Thune working with your father to execute his agenda?
You know, I'm very hopeful. I mean, I think we have...
Alex, show me $1 million check or show me $1 million and we can have a conversation. Until then, you're just too retarded to talk to. Yes, Disney, the people that want to chop off kids' penises and make them get transgender surgeries before they turn 18. Yes, Florida tried to stop their culture bullshit. Correct. But I guess you just want kids' penises to be chopped off and paid for with our taxpayer money. Yes, you love that idea. Just like Disney does. Yummy.
A foreign policy establishment keeps trying to pull the world into conflict.
Holy lag.
So we have a very good relationship.
Putin has brought 11,000 North Korean troops to Ukraine's borders.
The only winner, if we were to do that, is Putin.
NATO has the ability to strike at any time, anywhere, in order to defend the alliance.
Winter has come to Europe, and Russia has amped up its operations in Ukraine. Putin has sent an additional 100,000 soldiers to the front lines in eastern and southern Ukraine. And the Russian soldiers are not alone. This time they have an ally fighting alongside in the trenches. And it's not Belarusian troops, but North Korean. Kim Jong-un has sent his elite soldiers to join Putin's troops on the front lines. It's an alliance unlike before. Russia and North Korea have ratified a mutual defense treaty. They have pledged to protect each other from the enemy without naming who the enemy really is. Russia still controls more than 1,000 kilometers of front line in eastern Ukraine. And Putin's troops are now making gains in the north as well, with two major pushes happening in the Kharkiv and the Sumy regions. And the Pentagon says that the North Korean troops are part of that offensive.
North Korea is helping Russia in its aggression against Ukraine. At the same time, the support that Russia is providing to North Korea, potentially including support for its nuclear and missile programs, poses a threat to stability and security in the Korean Peninsula as well. So we're very focused on this.
Putin has brought 11,000 North Korean troops to Ukraine's borders. This contingent may grow to 100,000. While some European leaders think about, some elections or something like this at Ukraine's expense, Putin is focused on winning this war. He will not stop on his own.
However, the West's concerns don't bother Putin. He has a goal in mind. Putin wants to capture as much Ukrainian land as possible before Donald Trump returns to the White House, which is in January next year. For the next few days, Putin has the time to advance his military in Ukraine, and this has been clearly visible, with Russia launching major airstrikes, followed by land incursions across Ukraine.
The Pokrovsk section is a very tense one. I know that only thanks to your resilience, the East hasn't been occupied in its entirety by the Russian Federation. The enemy gets our responses every day, from you and from your brothers in arms. I want you to know that the Ukrainian people are very thankful.
Alex Wash, if you don't look on the fucking news where they're chopping kids' dicks off that are in school, then it's all over the liberal news networks that you praise and worship. But you don't make $2 million a month. You don't even make fucking $2,000 a month. There's no way. You're way too stupid. I mean, I know stupid people can make millions too, but like, you're really stupid.
But now Zelensky says that the US-made attackers will do all the talking.
If you make $2 million a month, maybe there is a chance for me.
Today, there's a lot of talk in the media about us receiving permission for respective actions. But strikes are not carried out with words. Such things are not announced. Missiles will speak for themselves. They certainly will. Glory to Ukraine.
The MGM-140 Army Tactical Missile System, or ATACMS, are part of the High Mobile Artillery Rocket System, or HIMARS group. Made by the United States in 1991, these long-range supersonic tactical ballistic missile systems were delivered to Ukraine last year. They've been used extensively to strike Russian targets. They can be
Alex, you've been watching me for almost an hour now. How much money do you think you could have made with that hour? Or what do you think you could have done with your time better?
Which means that with Biden's green signal, Zelensky is eyeing Putin's key military assets inside Russia. And joining the United States is the United Kingdom. Keir Starmer has allowed the supply of more Storm Shadow missiles for Kyiv, which will be used against Russia.
So that is my clear message here. It's number one on my agenda. Obviously, I'm not going to get into operational details because the only winner, if we were to do that, is Putin, and I'm not prepared to do that.
The Storm Shadow is a Franco-British long-range cruise missile. It carries a 450-kilogram warhead and is air-launched from fighter jets. The Storm Shadow was inducted in 2003 and has a range of 550 kilometers. Which means that just like the attackers, the Storm Shadow can deal lethal blows deep inside Russia. However, it's not either of these weapons which have Putin worried. Russia's latest push into Ukraine comes as Putin prepares to meet Donald Trump on the negotiating table. Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president of the US in January next year. And he has promised to end the Russia-Ukraine war on day one upon taking office.
So we have a very good relationship, and I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
Trump has called his relations with Putin very good, and the love has been reciprocated by the Russian president. Putin has said that he's willing to begin truce talks once Trump enters the White House.
Hello, everybody.
You know, you can think of him whatever you want, because everyone initially in his first iteration as president said that he was mainly a businessman, and that he understood very little about politics and could make mistakes. A person shows himself in extraordinary circumstances. This is where a person shows himself, and he showed himself, in my opinion, in a very correct way, courageously, like a man.
Trump has previously said that he can surely bring an end to the war. One of his offers is to create a NATO-enforced buffer zone in Ukraine, where the currently occupied parts of Ukraine are considered no man's land. Which essentially means that Ukraine would lose its territory. On the other hand, Putin says that he has two conditions: that NATO stop expanding towards Russia, and that Ukraine gives up its ambitions of joining the Western security bloc. But the actions of NATO before Trump takes office are completely opposite to Putin's demands. Donald Trump says he wants the war to end, but his NATO allies haven't gotten the memo. In fact, NATO nations are preparing for war. Poland has opened a new US missile base in the country, located a few hundred kilometers from Russia's Kaliningrad. Redzikowo will house ballistic missiles and defense systems. The base has been in the works since the year 2000, and it was only fast-tracked after Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Simultaneously, the United States has ramped up military...
Alex is real silent right now.
And this specific detachment of how quickly a unit from a U.S. carrier can show up to Sweden to support, and even more importantly, how Sweden can then support U.S. assets from their bases within Sweden.
Neptune strike shows that NATO has the ability to strike at any time, anywhere, in order to defend the alliance.
Meanwhile, the Nordic nations of Sweden and Norway are preparing their residents for a direct war with Russia. Billions of Swedes and Norwegians have been instructed to stock up on food and essential supplies as tensions worsen between Russia and
Yeah, Michael, apparently Alex makes $2 million a month off his two stores. I don't believe his ass. Bullshit, he's too stupid, right?
Trump assumes the presidency.
I know stupid people make millions of dollars, don't get me wrong, but he's just way too weird and way too stupid.
Major questions still remain. Will Putin play ball? Will Ukraine agree to negotiate on Trump's conditions? And can Trump stop the Russian war machine?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Ukraine This Week with me, Don Arleth. It's been a big week. Finally, the United States lifted restrictions on Ukraine to use long-range weapons on Russian targets in Russia. And Vladimir Putin responded by sending an intermediate-range ballistic missile on Dnipro. We've got two fantastic guests today, General Ben Hodges and Timothy Milofanov, so stay with us. Now let's go to the most important stories coming out of Ukraine. As Russia maintained its widespread air attacks across Ukraine, the toll of human suffering increased, claiming the lives of children and adults and injuring scores of others. As freezing winter conditions begin to bite, the Russian attacks have also caused...
Yeah, $2 million a month. No one believes him. No one believes him. Alex, no one believes you make $2 million.
Northeastern Sumy region. Local officials said 6 people were killed here, including a child. 12 people were also injured in the drone attack on a residential dormitory in the small town of Kharkiv. The day before, a Russian missile attack killed 10 people and wounded 44 in Ukraine's Black Sea port of Odessa, according to the local governor and national police. 4 children were among the wounded, while 3 people were left in a serious condition. Officials said a Russian ballistic missile hit a residential neighborhood, damaging an apartment building, part of a university, and an administrative building. The dead included 7 police officers, a medic, and 2 residents. Hours earlier, 10 people, including 2 children, were killed and 52 injured on Sunday night when a Russian missile hit a residential 9-story building in the Sumy region. The attack on Sumy followed a morning of Russia pounding Ukraine's power grid in what Kyiv said was a massive attack with 120 missiles and 90 drones. Elsewhere, an 11-year-old boy was killed and his 13-year-old sister injured in an attack on the Donetsk region, while 2 people were also killed in the Kherson region.
The Biden administration has announced a $275 million military aid package for Ukraine. This latest support package includes ammunition and, for the first time, anti-personnel landmines.
According to a Pentagon statement, the supplies will include much-needed artillery ammunition and mortar rounds and high-mobility artillery rocket system, or HIMARS, ammunition. The US State Department said it was providing the urgently needed weapons and equipment to Ukraine as it defended against Russia's ongoing attacks. The outgoing Biden administration has provided some $64 billion in military aid to Kyiv since Russia's invasion in February 2022. However, the future of the US commitment to providing arms to Ukraine remains uncertain as President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take office in January 2025.
There are warnings that the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is at risk of total blackout after Russian shelling severed one of 2 lines supplying power to the giant plant.
Ukraine's energy ministry says attacks by Russia around the massive Zaporizhia complex in southern Ukraine have caused safety-threatening damage. Officials are warning that Europe's largest...
Trump will go down as the greatest president ever. He will stop this war. He's the only man that can. We need Donald J. Trump. Hit the like and subscribe button.
The Zaporizhia site has been under the Kremlin's control since early March 2022, just days after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began. Its 6 reactors were shut down 7 months later in September 2022. It's been subjected to numerous attacks over the past 2 years and suffered a major fire in a cooling tower in September. The International Atomic Energy Agency is monitoring developments at Zaporizhia. The Energy Ministry said its engineers will begin to restore full power to the station as soon as the security situation allows. Both Ukraine and Russia have accused each other's forces of attacking the plant.
The United Kingdom has reached a major milestone in its program to train Ukrainian troops. The UK's Ministry of Defense says that more than 50,000 Ukrainian recruits have now been put through their paces under Operation Interflex. which prepares them for battle by boosting their skills and readiness.
Battle simulations in the British countryside. They're being held for the new recruits for Ukraine's defense against Russia's invasion. While they're far from the front line, the lessons they learn here can help save lives. They're taking part in a 5-week boot camp under the UK's Operation Interflex, which has now trained 50,000 Ukrainian men and women. The trainees are participating in tactical casualty care in combat at a training site in southwest England. Operation Interflex is supported by international partners who deploy soldiers to the UK to help train both voluntary and conscripted Ukrainians. A total of 13 countries support the programme, providing essential military training at various facilities. The training operation was due to come to an end this year, but will now continue until at least the end of 2025.
The war in Ukraine has witnessed major developments on both sides, with the outgoing Biden administration allowing Kyiv to attack sites within Russia using U.S. weapons, and Moscow unleashing a new hypersonic ballistic missile. President Putin claims the weapon cannot be intercepted by existing defense systems, and warned that Moscow could hit back against countries supplying long-range weapons used by Ukraine.
CCTV footage captures the moment multiple bright flashes rained down from the sky in Ukraine's Dnipro. Russia says it fired a new hypersonic intermediate-range ballistic missile at the city. Its launch came after President Joe Biden agreed to Kyiv's use of its Atakams missiles to take out key military targets far from the front lines. They're thought to have been used to attack an ammunition depot in Russia's Bryansk region. The UK has also allowed its long-range Storm Shadow weapons to hit Russian positions that would otherwise be beyond Ukraine's reach. On Friday, Sky News reported that Ukraine's military, for the first time, confirmed the use of British-made Storm Shadow missiles inside Russian territory. Ukraine is currently limited to targets in the Kursk region only. Storm Shadows are thought to have been deployed in this attack on a Russian army command post in the town of Mariino. The Kremlin claims the new Oreshnik missile is unstoppable, traveling at 10 times the speed of sound, with a range of 5,000 kilometers. Vladimir Putin warned the West that Moscow could strike the military installations of any country whose weapons were used against Russia. The Biden team has also agreed to supply defensive landmines to Ukraine. While the State Department has described them as non-persistent anti-personnel landmines, the move was criticized by human rights organizations. Russia also this week changed its nuclear doctrine. Now an attack from a non-nuclear state, if backed by a nuclear power, will be treated as a joint assault on Russia. The move came as Ukraine marked the 1,000th day of the conflict. The rule change means a large attack on Russia with conventional weapons could place Ukrainians in the firing line from the Kremlin's new, lower criteria for a nuclear response.
And now here to discuss all this week's developments, joining me is General Ben Hodges, former commander of U.S. Army forces in Europe. Hello, and thank you very much for joining me on Ukraine this week.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
Now, I'm going to start with the biggest elephant in the room, and it's what we saw and witnessed the other day. Your assessment of this RS-26 Rubej intermediate range ballistic missile. Previously it was classified as intercontinental ballistic missile. What is your immediate assessment on Russia's use of this weapon on the city of Dnipro?
This tells me that they are terrified that Ukraine now has use of ATACMS, Storm Shadow, and Scout against targets inside Russia. They dreaded this. Now Ukraine has already destroyed...
Guys, we got some lovely news. Germany says it won't arrest Netanyahu despite ICC membership due to Nazi history of arresting Jews. Wow. So since the Nazis arrested so many Jews, they're going to let him slide. Hell yeah.
a major ammunition storage site. They've already hit an important headquarters location. And of course, the Russians, remember when Ukraine first employed Storm Shadow in Sevastopol, where it destroyed the Black Sea Fleet headquarters and it destroyed the dry dock that was an essential part of their maintenance capability in Sevastopol. And so the Black Sea Fleet had to move out of the Crimea. So that's what I take from this, that they dreaded Ukraine getting those capabilities. And so they're trying to exploit the excessive amount of fear that is in Washington and Berlin and some other capitals that, oh my God, Russia might use a nuclear weapon.
Now, the Pentagon says it was warned, some say about a half an hour before this missile was launched. Why is this important, that there's communications along these lines to avoid escalation, I would imagine?
Well, there have been procedures in place for decades to avoid misunderstandings about when one side or the other launches a test, for example, of one of their missiles. So it seems like, and I only know this from reading the media as well, that call may have happened like that. But I would also say that I have a lot of confidence that our early warning systems are able to tell when Russia is getting ready to launch one of these types of weapons.
Now, with a ballistic missile, with an intercontinental ballistic missile or missiles of these types, normally they would be, they were designed and built to carry nuclear warheads, right? They have several warheads per missile. From the footage that we see coming out from the Ukrainian armed forces, it looks like these warheads were inert. And is there any conventional weapon that can be used on an intercontinental ballistic missile that will make it effective on the battlefield?
Well, it's interesting, I think, that Russia has been using a lot of weapons that are nuclear capable from the start since February of 22, when they started the special operation or the large-scale invasion. So the fact that they employed a missile now that is was not carrying a nuclear warhead, but is capable of carrying it, actually, that's old news. But this is all part of the scare tactic. And then the video you keep showing there, of course, that was released by the Kremlin. That's actually one of their spaceships that was launched a couple of years ago. But they are trying to create imagery that all of us look at and like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. That's exactly the effect that they want. Or when you get newspapers that have a big headline like the Daily Mail did that says Russia launches nuclear capable weapon. But they've been doing that for 3 years. And I think that we need to be cool. The Ukrainians are not, they're not more scared today than they were yesterday, because they've been dealing with this from the beginning. And I think this is the time where we should say, you know what, we're going to double down on what we've provided Ukraine. We're going to give them every ATACMS that we have and take the handcuffs off. They can use them wherever they need to, as long as it's not a violation of law of armed conflict, i.e. don't target civilians.
So long story short, basically we should be really underwhelmed at Russia's attempt to escalate or to instill fear in us due to the allowing of Ukraine to use the ATACMS and the Storm Shadows.
Yeah, we have got to fix the main mistake that we in the West have made from the beginning. We never did say why this matters to us. We have not said we want Ukraine to win because it's in our interest. All of this support for Ukraine is not charity. As inspiring as Ukrainians are, this is about stability and security in Europe, which affects the economies of all of us, including the U.S. and Canada. This is about, preventing Russia from being able to take the war further into Europe. It's to our advantage that Ukraine actually defeats Russia. And of course, that sends a message to the Chinese as well, that we do have the political will and the capability to help Ukraine defeat Russia. That's been the biggest mistake, and because we haven't done that, We've had a lot of really goofy kind of policies about what we deliver, why it takes so long, and you have restrictions on what they can do with it, things that make absolutely no sense. And clearly, escalation management by the Biden administration has been a failure. I mean, this war has been prolonged because of this lack of decisive action by all of us. And I think what I see are European leaders like Prime Minister Tusk and others in Europe are realizing that they're going to have to step up and do a lot more because the United States is not going to solve it ourselves, and they're not sure what a Trump administration will bring either.
In terms of the Biden administration, just 2 months to go before President-elect Donald Trump is sworn in. So this decision coming quite late in the game, is it too little too late? And also, I'll throw this on top of there. We're still about $7 billion short from the $60 billion supplemental that hasn't been supplied out of U.S. stocks. And some say it's because the stocks are too low. What are the chances that we're going to get these weapons deployed on the battlefield to Ukraine before President-elect Trump comes in?
So I think that what's going on now on the U.S. side and with many of our allies, that they are scrambling to get as much done as they possibly can. The lack of urgency prior to this, not by the women and men with doing the hands-on stuff in Germany, in Poland, or shipping it from the States. I'm not talking about them. They're working round the clock. I'm talking about getting the authorities, what the administration has done, has been so slow to do, to move it. So they're trying to catch up now, get as much done as they can. I think we're going to see more things continuing to move. Although I don't see a big, obviously the Congress is not going to pass another package beyond what's already been done until we're into the new Congress and the new administration. Is it too little too late? I definitely say it's still insufficient, and it's definitely late, but it's never too late to give Ukraine capabilities that will enable them to kill or destroy Russian headquarters, Russian logistics, and Russian artillery. It's never too late to do that. And also give them the ability to use these weapons against the sites from which Russia is launching these airstrikes that are killing innocent Ukrainian civilians every day. My friend General Breedlove, he says, kill the archer, that's better than trying to intercept all the arrows. That's what Ukraine needs to be able to do.
Tomahawks have been mentioned as a potential game changer. If we gave a bunch of Tomahawks, first of all, would it be cost effective, and would it achieve what Ukraine wants them for?
So I generally don't like the phrase game changer when we talk about a particular weapon or platform, because unless you provide tens of thousands of them, there is no weapon that's going to be the game changer. What would be the game changer would be a declaration by the administration and other European countries that it's our policy that Ukraine wins, and therefore we're going to do everything they need so that they win. That would be game changing. Now, of course, Tomahawk or any kind of precision capability like that has that sort of reach, that would make it very difficult for Russia to continue to launch the airstrikes they're launching against civilian targets in Ukraine. You know, the ATACMS and the Storm Shadow, those are tactical range weapons out to about 300 or 400 kilometers. Those are ideal for striking headquarters and logistics, ammunition storage, for example. Tomahawk, of course, could strike these airfields that are deep inside of Russia, from which they are launching these strikes against civilian targets inside Ukraine. I would always be for that. And the Ukrainians are better than anybody I've ever seen at learning how to integrate new weapon systems.
China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. With President-elect Trump coming into office, from what we know, it seems like he's going to target Iran with very tough sanctions. He's going to try and isolate the regime. He's going to try and cut off their oil sales. Easier said than probably done. But what about Russia in this case? If Trump takes a really hard stance on Iran, is Russia going to allow this to happen? Will it fear the response from the Trump administration? What are your thoughts?
So we don't know exactly how the Trump administration is really going to govern and act when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, and the North Korea and China. I don't assume he'll do the same thing he did last time. And interestingly, the Trump administration will have enormous leverage over Russia. This is a different dynamic because they can come in and he can tell Vladimir Putin, say, hey, look, I'm taking the gloves off. I'm going to give Ukraine everything they want, no restrictions. And by the way, we're going to stop Russia. We're going to stop your ability to export oil and gas to China and India, which is the only thing that's keeping Russia in the fight is the money that they get from sales to China and India. So President Trump could come in and do that. I don't know that he will. And certainly a lot of the things that were said by people around him during the campaign don't give me a lot of optimism about it. But he was not as, let's just say, I don't think his foreign policy is driven by moral principle as much as it's a power thing. And so I look to the Congress and where you've got most of the Republican leadership in the Senate and in the House, the Republicans are very pro-Ukraine. They're pro-transatlantic. They are pro-NATO. And so I think that they, plus people like Prime Minister Tusk or Secretary General Mark Rutte, who just flew to Florida to see Mr. Trump down at Mar-a-Lago to convey, look, Mr. President, you will be blamed if Ukraine fails. It'll happen during your administration. He won't want that. And this is to America's advantage if we do this. And the Europeans, I think, are going to take on a lot more burden. Trump can take credit for that. So to your last one about Iran, I actually think if we were looking at this in a strategic way, you would connect Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China, with a strategy being defeat Russia first. That will isolate Iran. Iran has no friends on the planet except the Kremlin. North Korea has no friends on the planet except the Kremlin. So if Russia is defeated, they're much less able to help Iran or help North Korea. That would obviously have a knock-on effect with making Iran less able to support Hezbollah or the Houthis. And then the Chinese would say, wow, the West is serious about these so-called international rules-based order. So that's how I hope the president approaches it, with the end game being China successfully deterred.
Do you think that the next American president, if he does not break up the China, Russia, Iran, North Korea axis, that we are going to be entering a much more dangerous world in the future?
Well, right now, we're not at peace. I think people cringe at the idea if we say, well, we're at war. We're the United States, Poland, Germany, UK. We're not at war in the traditional sense with Russia or China. Certainly, we're fighting against Houthis. Certainly, we have had our pilots up in the air, along with Royal Air Force and French pilots, shooting down Iranian missiles over Israel. But Russia is at war with us. They clearly are at war with us. They, in China, Iran, they're all doing things, sabotage. We just saw the cables in the Baltic Sea that were cut. The disinformation, interference in our domestic politics, criminal activity all over the place, continuous violations of airspace. Why do we not respond? Why are we not shooting down missiles that go through Polish airspace or Latvian airspace or Romanian airspace? Until we get in the mindset of being at war or recognize that we're not at peace and do the things necessary to inflict some pain on the Russians.
Guys, hit the like and subscribe button.
Certainly, Foreign Minister Landsbergis from Lithuania has recently said that we're not really calling a spade a spade. We're calling it hybrid warfare, but we're not calling it terrorist attack. Meanwhile, the NATO is considering the proper response if indeed this latest cable cutting incident in the Baltic Sea was done intentionally. So for my final question, what would be a proper response from NATO to finally do what Minister Landesberg has said, call a spade, and actually respond to these attacks?
Blow them up.
Yeah, well, first of all, Foreign Minister Landesberg is one of the brightest lights in Europe among diplomats and leaders. I love the way he speaks so clearly. First of all, we can't just talk about, being extremely concerned about these violations. We've been extremely concerned for years, and the Russians and Chinese have only increased what they're doing. This big Chinese vessel out there, the Danish Navy did respond to it, to their great credit. I think
Hit the like and subscribe.
Forced in, and until a thorough investigation has been conducted. We're not looking for evidence like in a murder case where you have to have incontrovertible evidence. We may get it wrong a couple of times, but until we start seizing ships that are probably involved in this, until we get serious about stopping Russia from exporting oil and gas, which almost all of it goes out through the Baltic Sea or the Black Sea, the entrance to both of which are controlled by NATO countries. Why are we not doing something about that? And I think if we're going to call a spade, let's be serious. Don't call it hybrid warfare, because hybrid warfare sounds kind of like not really that harmless. It is a conflict. They are at war with us. We definitely are not at peace. Call it what you want, but until we inflict pain on the Russians and the Chinese, they're not going to change behavior.
All right, General Ben Hodges, thank you very much for joining us on Ukraine This Week. We always appreciate your analysis. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys.
And now, to get an analysis straight out of Ukraine, my next guest is Timothy Milov.
Well, that was a great show today. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and tune in tonight or tomorrow morning for the next show. Much appreciated, guys. Much love. Appreciate everyone subscribing and liking. Peace out.